And the stakes could not be higher right now for an upcoming meeting between President Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. They're going to be together in Washington later this month when Netanyahu visits Washington to address Congress. The two leaders spoke on the phone for about 30 minutes this week, talking about a ceasefire deal with Hamas and the release of the remaining hostages in Gaza. Negotiations are going on as we speak in Doha, Qatar. A senior Biden administration official says the framework for a deal is now in place. I want to welcome in Alex Traiman, Jewish News Syndicate CEO and award-winning documentary filmmaker, to talk about these latest developments. Alex, welcome. As always, appreciate you being here. I want to start with Hezbollah, though, and this threat to the north. That has remained throughout the last few months since the Hamas attack on October 7th, but certainly these latest rocket fires are concerning. What are the capabilities of Hezbollah? How much power do they have?
Well, Hezbollah is a much more powerful force than Hamas ever was. As was mentioned in the last segment, they have between 150,000 and 200,000 rockets. Many of those are precision guided. Many of them are long range. Many of them can place significant payloads on them, and they can target strategic infrastructure in Israel directly and hit them. And most of the rockets that they fired so far at Israel, which include anti-tank guided missiles, drones, explosive-bladed drones, they fired over 20,000 so far at Israeli towns and military installations. And unfortunately, Israel's missile defense is not proving as successful as shooting those down than they are from Gaza.
So Hamas was very clear it wanted to eliminate Jews, right? It's why they attacked on October the 7th. What's Hezbollah's beef with Israel?
Well, Hezbollah is the primary terror proxy of the Islamic Republic of Iran. It's their forward front base against the state of Israel. They've been arming Hezbollah for decades by creating a land bridge through Iraq, through Syria, arming them into southern Lebanon. And they basically, together with Hamas, have been working as part of this ring of terror around the Jewish state.
So with these rocket fires, 200 or so, we know Hezbollah's potential. At this point, how does Israel meet this moment to prevent further escalation?
Well, I'd say we're already in a period of significant escalation between the two sides. We saw on the recent Jewish holiday of Shavuot last month, we saw another 150 to 200 rockets fired. So this is becoming a more normal occurrence, unfortunately, from Hezbollah. Israel's been attacking on a regular basis against senior Hezbollah commanders. Israel's also created a 3-kilometer dead zone between the Israeli border with Lebanon, moving north. Ultimately, what Israel wants to see accomplished is Hezbollah retreating back behind the Litani River, which is about 19 kilometers at its furthest point from the state of Israel. And Israel showing Hezbollah and Lebanon that if Hezbollah doesn't retreat on their own, that Israel will decimate that entire area to make sure that Hezbollah cannot operate close to Israeli residential centers.
And Israel has the capability to do that and face a war potentially on two fronts?
Israel is one of the most battle-ready, strongest, technologically advanced militaries in the Middle East. I'm certain that Hezbollah, the Lebanese, and the Iranians are quite aware of the damage that Israel's done inside Gaza against Hamas during these last 8 months, and they have every indication to understand that Israel can exact a very, very heavy price on the entirety of Lebanon, much stronger than Lebanon and Hezbollah could exact on Israel. That said, Israel doesn't want to absorb any of these missiles that Hezbollah has, and I believe that the Israeli government and the military would seek to avoid greater escalation if at all possible.
We talked about the framework of a deal in place to release the hostages to achieve a ceasefire. What are you hearing, Alex, about the progress of these talks underway right now?
Well, on the one hand, we've heard these talks ongoing for months. The Biden administration announced this latest proposal or some variation of it more than a month ago. There is a feeling inside Israel that we could be closer than ever. Israel is now moved almost completely through the southern town of Rafah and has announced that they want to transition from phase 2 to phase 3 of the war, which would mean more targeted operations and with fewer forces. And I do think that there is a willingness for Israel to negotiate some kind of a hostage exchange and a cessation or quieting of the hostilities if they can get to it. But ultimately, it's not Israel that decides whether Hamas will release the terrorists. That's going to be up to Hamas. And Yahya Sinwar hasn't been willing to reach an arrangement with Israel since 110 hostages were released many months back.
Yeah, 9 months ago. Alex Traiman, as always, thank you.
Thank you for having me, Marni.